Welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs, and this is a Bama fans struggling with reality edition of the OHIO podcast. Do us all a favor, hit that thumbs up button, give us a like. That really does help the channel out. If you haven't already and you're an Ohio State fan, absolutely subscribe to the channel. If you're not an Ohio State fan and you like the content we're producing, subscribe to the channel anyways. We will take as many subscriptions as we possibly can. We are the official Ohio State podcast of Scarlet and Game. Head on over to scarletandgame.com. If you don't like the way my face looks, who can blame you? I've got a face for radio, as they say. You can listen and download the podcast over at scarletgame.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you don't enjoy listening and you want to watch us, you can absolutely watch us on YouTube, where we are the official Ohio State podcast of the College Huddle. Head on over to thecollegehuddle.com, where you can listen and watch to us and 75 other great podcasts from coast to coast covering college football, basketball, and other sports from their favorite collegiate teams. Guys, Alabama has had quite the run under Nick Saban, haven't they? I mean, let's just call it like it is. Nick Saban is one of, if not the greatest college football coach of all time. At least in my lifetime, he is the greatest coach of all time. I know Paul Bear Bryant, one might argue, is the greatest. As an Ohio State fan, Woody Hayes is obviously mentioned in the same breath as those two guys. But in my lifetime, no one has dominated the sport quite like Nick Saban has. And as a Buckeye fan, it's quite humbling to think that he was the one who was coaching Michigan State back in the late '90s, ruined that national championship team with that upset loss to Sparty. And then he goes to the NFL after a winning one at LSU, and then goes to Alabama and wins 6 national championships during that time span, has 7 and credited to his name, and just dominated the sport previously before the NIL era, as we would call this, the NIL transfer portal era. And that seems to be the thing that really led him to probably doing away with furthering his career. He kind of said at that point, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And who can blame the guy, after dominating so much for so long, and then I'll have to try to transition to this new era, and he's just like, I don't want to do that. So I don't blame him, but he is who he is, and unfortunately for you Bama fans, because he is who he is, you guys are about, I think, getting a huge dose of reality of what it's like to be a college football fan and not have the greatest coach of all time roaming your sideline. This season was kind of a wake up call for all of you guys. And based off of what I'm reading from the message boards and from Alabama fans, you all are having a difficult time dealing with your new reality. Let's dive into a lot of these comments. I want to read from you guys today. I think you all are going to find out that it is quite interesting. All right, so we're on Facebook here. Alabama Diehards page. This is a post from the Alabama Diehards. This was on the 8th, so 7 days ago. And it says, how are we feeling about Alabama Athletic Director Greg Burns' comments after Bama is left out of the CFB playoffs? Of course, Greg said, disappointed with the outcome and felt we were one of the 12 best teams in the country. We had an extremely challenging schedule and recognized there were 2 games in particular that we did not perform as well as we should have. We have said that we would need to see how strength of schedule would be evaluated by the CFP. With this outcome, we will need to assess how many Power 4 non-conference games make sense in the future to put us in the best position to participate in the CFP. This is not good for college football. With that said, we do not need to hang our heads and now need to finish this season strong. We have a great group of young men who have led us with Coach DeBoer through the last year, and we look forward to our opportunity in the Relia Quest Who Gives a Darn No One Cares Bowl. Um, I agree. Go win that game. As a Buckeye fan, I can't stand the team up north, so absolutely go crush them in what's left of their roster, please. That I would attest to that's being a worthy thing to do. So absolutely, Alabama, go do that. However, I have taken a lot of, shall we say, offense to some of those comments that he gave because, quite frankly, the belief that you guys all play some kind of difficult schedule is downright laughable. The SEC, although it is still the best conference in college football, that gap between the SEC and the Big Ten is not a golf anymore. It is very close. Um, you might well, and I know immediately what some of you are going to say. That's absolutely not true. The Big Ten doesn't have as many good teams as the SEC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Blah blah blah. And you're getting defensive before you really stop and you analyze it and you think about it. I said you're still better, but the gap between the SEC and the Big Ten is not enormous anymore. You guys bringing in Texas and Oklahoma, um, did it boost who you are as a conference? Slightly, slightly. Did bringing in Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Washington boost the Big Ten more than bringing in just Texas and Oklahoma? And I'll prove that in a minute. And the fact that you guys lost to Oklahoma, who is a mid football team at this point, mid, proves my point exponentially. And we will get to that in just a second. But let's start into these comments because they are gold and they need to be read and reacted to. Let's start with Sean Crawford. Shouldn't have lost to Vandy in Oklahoma. That's on the coaches. There was no excuse to why Bama had to lose those games. We have way better talent than those two schools, and the way they dominated Bama was inexcusable. I still think we need a new OC. I don't believe in, I think it's Sheridan. If DeBoer and the OC had made some kind of adjustments during those games, Bama would have had a better shot. It's water under the bridge now. Hopefully they learn from this, says Sean. Hopefully they don't learn from this, Sean. I would love to see Alabama lose 3 or 4 games every single season. But you're right. You can't lose to Oklahoma and Vandy. You could lose to one of them, and you would have made the playoffs because the Georgia loss is considered a quote unquote good loss. You could lose to Vandy and or Oklahoma, and you still would have made the playoffs because you did have wins over Ole Miss and LSU, who were good teams. But you can't lose to both of them. You absolutely cannot. And the argument that the athletic director wants to make that, well, I guess we'll just have to look at scheduling more cupcakes like Mercer on our season. Dude, you went 4-0 in the non-conference. You played four like I guess okay teams. I mean, Wisconsin didn't even have a winning record in the Big Ten this year, guys. Like they weren't even Vanderbilt in the Big Ten. They weren't Oklahoma in the Big Ten. They were Ole Miss in the Big Ten, or Mississippi State in the Big Ten. They were the Bulldogs of Mississippi State in the Big Ten. That's who you went into Madison, Wisconsin and beat this season. Okay? So don't sit there and act like, oh my gosh, it was the non conference schedule that was just so difficult for Alabama. And I will continue to die on this hill. You need to play 9 conference games in the SEC, just like every other conference is doing. It is pointless for you to schedule Mercer. And spare me the argument that the SEC is so much more difficult that you have to schedule Mercer to make up the difference because that is BS and you know it. You know it to be fact. That is true. Grow a set, be a man, play 9 conference games. Why else are you in the conference for? That's ridiculous. Let's add more teams, but not add more conference games. Get out of here with that. It's an absolute joke. Christopher Smith, cancel all the OOCP4 games. Why, Chris? Because you're scared? You're chicken? Why? Schedule the bottom of the mid-major teams. If that's how they want to run this playoff, then do what's best for us and not the college football viewers as whole. The committee has just ruined all the regular season big games so that we can get Penn State and SMU with a yawning emoji. Wait till the ratings go down and see how they change in their minds really quickly. Chris, you obviously aren't paying attention. Penn State draws huge numbers, dude. Absolutely big numbers. That game is going to do absolutely fine. Penn State fans are out of their mind for this game. Just because it doesn't have a number on the side of their helmet in crimson, like crimson helmet with white number on the side of their helmet, you think people aren't going to tune in for that? You're out of your mind, Chris. You're absolutely out of your mind. This is the spoiled fan base mindset that Bama fans have had for well over 2 decades now, thinking that just because Nick Saban's on their sideline and they win more than they lose, that somehow they run the sport. It's not true. It's never been true, and it wasn't true before Nick Saban got there. From Paul Bear Bryant to Nick Saban, Bama didn't run college football for the better part of 3 decades. Okay, so spare me the no one's going to watch this argument. That is just totally conceited. It's narcissistic. Chris, get out of here with your comment. Michelle Wright, this isn't about anyone crying or complaining. However, that's exactly what everybody is doing in the comments, Michelle. It's about measuring teams equally to determine who is in the top 12. When you look at who 5 of the teams had to play to get a spot, clearly it's not equal, and clearly they would not they would not the best if they had to play in the SEC. Again, SEC bias coming through. Michelle, we get it. You probably live in Alabama, and this is how you view the world. I agree with Saban. Why play hard teams going forward? Be like these other 5 and guarantee a playoff spot by playing easier teams. Seems so backwards, but that is the new rules. No, it's not. Just win your conference games. The out of conference schedule in the grand scheme of things didn't matter for you, Alabama, at all. Zero. It meant nothing. You went 4-0 in your out of conference games. So you had 8 conference games. You only won 5 of them. It doesn't matter what you did out of conference. You went 5-3 in your conference. Now, maybe if you'd have played 9 conference games and you would have gone 6-3, maybe you would have had a little bit better of an argument. But that argument, Michelle, is incorrect. And sorry to hurt your feelings, even though you say it's not about anyone crying, which clearly you are. I like Jake's response here. Jake Phillips voiceover says, get someone easier than Mercer. This cannot stand." Right? Play someone easier than Mercer. Absolutely. If you told me before the season that Bama went 9-3, I'd be like, "Oh, wow, really? Awesome." So we only lost to Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU, right? Right? We lost games that are unacceptable to lose, said Dylan Farley. Bingo. Dylan gets it. Aaron, he says, "Roll tears, roll. I hate to see a grown man cry on national television, but it's Bama, so it's funny." Ryan says, "We need to use this as fuel and not cry, leaving room for criticism. Got to stand tall, win that bowl game, and come back next year to win it all unscathed." Yes, Ryan, go win the bowl game. But however, you're not just going to walk in next season and win it all. Nick Saban ain't back there on the sideline, buddy. It's a new era of college football. Let me let you in on a little secret. And I know a lot of you are going to say, "I'm out of my mind. You're crazy. This is just a Northern fan crying because the South has ran college football for the better part of 2 decades." Here's the truth. In the South, y'all been giving bags out. Y'all been paying players NIL illegally for decades. Everybody knows it. The college football community knew it. And with NIL, it's now legal, and your northern schools are catching up. They're able to pay players now. Oregon's paying players. Ohio State's paying players. Even Michigan's now paying players. Notre Dame's going to start paying players more. You're going to see more players go to more northern schools because of the money. And because of that, and because of the transfer portal, rosters are more even. So Coaching means more now than ever. It's not just about recruiting. It's about the X's and O's and the Jimmies and Joes. It's about both of them now. And you can't just go out there, recruit the best of the best, pay them under the table, and think you're going to walk away with national championships because you're in the South and you can get away with it. Your conference allows it and sweeps it under the rug. That's the reality of it now. NIL has leveled the playing field, and guess what? You're starting to see the reality of that. Northern schools they're catching up to y'all. That's the truth of the matter. All right. Let's see. This is Chastity Hobbs Hood. Greg is right. If they aren't judging by strength of schedule, then that is not good for college football. They are judging your strength of schedule. It's one aspect that they're looking at. Dylan Wilson, 11-1 versus 9-3 sounds like a problem only an upset fan base would have deciding between the two. Robert Lewis, we want a stronger schedule, not weaker. We are Bama football. Win the games and the championships will come. There was no excuse for 2 of the games we lost. Be consistent. Bring the A game every week. Robert gets it. That is a fan who understands the reality of the situation. You are few and far between, Robert. Jennifer says strength means nothing. Imagine it. Georgia wins it all. Plays teams you know you can win. However, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma should have been wins. So exactly. Georgia actually had a tougher schedule than you guys. Sorry, it's true. You get beat by Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. You only score 3 points against a team that LSU beat 37-13 the next weekend. It doesn't look good, so you're left out. It's pretty simple. That's Sonny Hicks. Charles Thomas sounds like sour grapes from our AD. There's nothing wrong with our future and current schedule. Win the games you're supposed to win. Yep, you get it. You get it, Charles. All right, this ought to be a good one. It doesn't seem strength of schedule matters. Oh my gosh. It does. Just playing the SEC, no need to play anyone else. The SEC is the strongest. Proud of the players and coaches. They'll get them next year. Anyway, this committee hasn't a clue as to the criteria for making the Okay, hold on, Faye. This committee doesn't have a clue as to the criteria for making the CFP. This committee is the first in the CFP for 12 teams. What do you mean they don't have a clue? They just set the standard, you numbskull. Jiminy Christmas. Oh my goodness, you act like the CFP committee's been around for decades and you have all these years of evidence on how they're going to pick teams. This was the first year, Faye. It's probably good Bama stayed out of the fray because this is not going to go as they envision it would go. They absolutely don't have the best 12 teams in the CFP, maybe 3. They maybe have 3 of the best, 3 out of the top 12, you think. So you think there's 9 other teams better than the ones they've put in there. Faye would literally have the top 12 teams in the SEC playing for the college football playoff. I guarantee she would. Ratings are going to be low. Again, they will not be, which means money is going to be low. Again, it's already paid for. It's not going to be. The money's already it's in the bank. It's the money's in the bank. Advertisement dollars already paid for through the television networks. It's already in the bank, Faye. Get a clue. They didn't do their homework. They actually did a lot more homework than you obviously have. And now they're about to find out. Wish all the teams good health. Disappointed but not sad. Next year, exemplary. Wow, Faye out there drinking too much with Willie. This is such a strange comment, says Jeff. There was only one P4 opponent. There's not a lot of room to change this. There were 3 loss teams being compared favorably against 2 loss teams purely because of strength of schedule. If you weaken that schedule, they aren't in the conversation as Miami remains ahead. The idea that you can help your case by removing your only positive argument is silly. Exactly, Jeff. Good for college football here really is an argument for exclusion rather than inclusion. If the one-loss team losing a close conference championship slid behind a team with another loss and fewer games, similar strength of record, it would be far more problematic for the sport. You'd have coaches like Kiffin doing what they can to want to avoid the conference championships. Bingo, Jeff. There are arguments to be made to choose either way, and neither answer is really correct. On the edge, some simply won't get in what they have, and a valid claim at 12. There were a handful of teams in this position this year, but this was a bad one. Exactly. Just all you had to do was win one of those two games you lost. That's it. John Atkins, it was all SEC programs we lost to, is his statement. Doesn't make sense. The only way to put ourselves in the best position to make the playoffs is to win our games, regardless of who it is. Exactly, John. Leia says, says, win your games. Create value for your team. Quit looking at your gaudy gold chains. Kevin, the issue wasn't our out of conference games. We lost SEC games, play exactly the same teams next year. Bingo. Mike, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg. We now need to get behind our players and coaches and support them instead of bringing them down. Roll Tide. All right, Mike. Thank you, Greg. I love it how people make comments on Facebook like the athletic director or a player is going to read them. No one reads anything you write on Facebook. No one, except for apparently me and you all listening to me read them. So there's that. But he actually writes on Facebook like Greg's going to read that. Jennifer, a lot of inconsistency this season. Not sure how it would play out if we made it in. Glad to have a bowl game this year. Work hard to be better next year. By the way, I think bowl games are dying. They're going to be dying quickly. You're going to see that this season in the viewership. I do believe that. Bill says we lost 3 conference games, and if we would have showed it up at all against Oklahoma and beat them, we would have been in the SEC title game. We didn't lose any non-conference, so short of joining the MAC, American Mountain, etc., it wouldn't change. Yep, Bill, you're right. It definitely grabs your attention, and strength of schedule has to mean something. Fortunately, we have many years already booked in advance to have big name schools with big history. Why is that an well, fortunately, we have many years. Yeah, there you go. He just wanted to make a point. I don't think we will ever schedule like that. Can't say that for a lot of teams. The fact of the matter is, says Jim, Bama's 3 losses all came in conference. Make it make sense. There you go. Patrick says hopefully DeBoer will call plays and more traditional non-QB run offense will prevail in a different QB1. Patrick looking at the team. Sammy says true, not a Bama fan. However, it's really bad. College sports may be over. Sammy living in the was, not the is. That's what's going on with Sammy. College football is never going back to the good old days, Sammy, where the SEC could cheat and they were the only ones who were allowed to cheat. Sorry. Jay, from now on, if they ain't a SEC team, don't schedule no Power 5 teams. Start doing what Notre Dame does. Notre Dame had one of the toughest schedules in college football this year. It wasn't their fault. It was not Notre Dame's fault that Florida State stunk, that USC was mid, that Texas A&M, who they beat, ended up being just on the outside looking in. Those are 3 of the toughest teams traditionally you're going to play. And then sprinkled in between of that was all of the better ACC teams too. So I know Big Ten teams love to make that argument that Notre Dame doesn't play anybody either, but it's just not true. That's just not true. It just so happened that Notre Dame's schedule this season fell to where all the big marquee games on their schedule, those teams ended up being not very good. Jay Banks, from now on, if they ain't a SC, yeah, we already said that. That was whatever. All right, here's a good one. We'll finish with this one. Bama should have been in on the basis of being one of the best 12 teams. Then why didn't you beat Vanderbilt? Why didn't you beat Oklahoma? If you're one of the best 12 teams, why did you lose to 2 teams that aren't in the best 12? Make that make sense, Rodney. Please. Make it make sense. You lost to a 6-6 Vanderbilt team, a 6-6 Oklahoma team, but you're the one of the best 12 teams. If you're one of the best 12 teams, why are we even playing regular season games? Why even play the games? Just take the rankings from the beginning of the season and your recruiting rankings and say you're in. You have to make the games have to mean something there, Rodney. But the coaching and performance on the field failed. Those losses were costly. Hopefully, it lights a fire under the coaching staff and the team not to take any game for granted. I could go on and on and on. This is just absolute gold to watch Bama fans deal with reality, trying to make it all make sense as to how their blessed Crimson Tide is playing in the Reliant Quest no one gives a darn bowl against the cheaters from up north after going 9-3. Welcome to reality, Bama. This is your new reality. This is your new reality. You have to win games that matter in the new college football playoff. You have to. That's how you get in. You got to do better. You got to be better. You got to be at least in the top 3 or 4 in your conference. You have to. You were tied for 4th. It wasn't good enough. Wasn't good enough because you lost to 6-6 Vanderbilt and you lost to 6-6 Oklahoma. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think about what I think down in the comment section below. Let's have a good discussion. If you're a Bama fan, let me have it. Let me hear it. Am I right or am I right? Or am I wrong and you want to take me to task? If you're not a Bama fan, let's have some fun making fun of them in the comment section below, guys. As always, be kind to one another. I have some so H and Carmen High with all your heart. Till next time.